Thank you for joining Pachamama Alliance post-elections in the US. My name is Maisa, and I am here with my colleagues, Tracy Apple, Josh Wolf as well. They're waving over there. We're going to be co-hosting this space with you, and we are very fortunate to be in the presence of Rep D, as we call her, Reverend Deborah Johnson. She's a Pachamama Alliance board member and also founder of Inner Light Ministries. If you have not checked them out, if you have not joined their events, I very much recommend you do so. And for now, again, welcome. This is a listening circle, and this is part of the Pachamama Alliance's way of responding to what was, at first, it was COVID-19, and then the social uprisings, and now post-US elections. You may have heard that the container we named resilience and possibility in these times. And that's what we want to share with you, an opportunity to connect with your own resilience and with your own sense of possibility. And at this very moment, with your own sense of vision and possibility post-US elections. So thank you for trusting Pachamama Alliance. Thank you for trusting that we can hold that space for you and for our community in these moments that I think we may all agree it's moments of uncertainty and all the emotions that come with uncertainty, which are different for each one of us. I wanted to also mention that I'm connecting very deeply with what was the call and the task given to Pachamama Alliance many years ago in the early 90s. And it was to change the dream of the modern world. And that turned into the vision of Pachamama Alliance, which is connected to generating an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet. And while at times like this, it might feel like it's not as reachable, as close to us, I'm so happy to have you all here and to have Rep D really reconnect us back if that's what we need, or deepen our connection to that vision and the possibility. So thank you again. This call is going to be 75 minutes long. It's going to, I say call, but really it's like, it's this space is going to be 75 minutes long. And it's going to be very much about you all. It's about being in circle, in a space of listening to and being listened by the community. So we're going to be doing a good amount of breakout group space, which it was lovely. The first time we did it, we noticed people really resonated. And so here is to another space for us to be in community, listening and being listened by this wonderful global community of people committed to the vision that I mentioned. So with that, as always, I would like to invite Rep D to please acknowledge and open this space with acknowledging the people that came before us, acknowledging the land, and as we say, acknowledging the sacredness of the space that's always there, and inviting it to guide us in our 75 minutes together. So welcome, Rep D.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining from wherever you are. And as is our tradition, and I invite you to join us, not just now, but as your own practice in your own way. Whenever you get together with individuals, or I suggest even when you wake up in the morning, just have this idea of opening sacred space. So if you choose to close your eyes or just be still, the main thing is be fully present as much as you possibly can. And I invite you to just take a breath. Life is in the breath. Just take a few more deep breaths. There's so much collective anxiety out there in the airwaves right now. We need to just breathe ourselves through it for a moment. With every breath, we are connecting to something. There's something within us that is transcendent, where we are in this world, but we're not of it. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. But we are beyond our humanity. We are one with the Pachamama herself. We are one with the sacred interconnectedness of all of life. And we call in those powers right now. The energies, the elements of the wind, of the earth, and the sacred waters and the fire. We call in the wisdom of the indigenous peoples upon whose land we are at this moment. We call upon the wisdom of our ancestors and the energy of life itself to guide our steps, to help us tap into that deep reservoir of possibility that is there always. And it is with this level of humility and deep intent to be here for compassion, to be here for reconciliation, to be here for unification, to be here for the highest evolution of our spiritual souls. That's why we're here. We breathe into that. So as we listen to one another and learn from one another, students and teachers of each other, we bless this time. We bless it. And we let it unfold. And so it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Rev D. What a blessing. I know it was a blessing, but it was also a blessing to have that kind of a blessing. I'm Tracy Apple. I work for Pachamama Alliance. I work for Pachamama, and I'm responsible for our curriculum development. And I have to say, I recognize a lot of people in the room, and boy, dang, this COVID, I'd love to just come over and hug you all. It feels like family. It just feels like family. And when we arranged to have this particular listening circle, we thought it was a good time to gather the troops, gather the tribe, come together and see what there is to be said 2 days after the US election, in the middle of a pandemic, that we would just want to talk to each other, just like you do with family. And as Maisa indicated, this is a little bit different from our normal or our previous resilience and possibility offerings where we might ask Rev D to talk the whole time. And, I think we could spend days with Rev D and not begin to get to the bottom of what she has to say. But one thing we've been noticing through the latest Game Changer intensives and our other interactions with this community is there's some pretty wise people in our body. I mean, it isn't just the Rev Ds of the world. It's actually, there's kind of a wisdom coming among all of us, or at least that's what we're noticing in the Pacha community. So we wanted to give a chance for you not only to listen to each other, but actually to listen to yourself, hear what comes out of your mouth in this kind of an environment. So just to say it a little bit, what we'll do, Josh will tell us in just a minute how the mechanics of the breakouts work, but we'll try to give you a time to be together when we break out, where it isn't just like, hi, I'm Tracy Apple. I'm from Chechnya land, unseated in the East Bay, and I'm feeling a little uneasy. Now, give a little bit more time so there could be some more depth and meat and interactions. But first, we'll ask Rev D, what do you think? What's going on? What's going on in general? What's going on in these times? What should we be watching out for and opening ourselves to? And really any of those, I know Rev D will feel very comfortable speaking to. So we'll give her as much time as she wants for that. And then Josh will put us in groups and we'll talk about that and see what comes up for us. Then we'll come back together and see what's been created amongst us all. So that's what I would suggest our flow is going to be. If you haven't put yourself by name in the chat, please, you're very welcome to do that. There's something wonderful about saying I'm here and I'm from wherever you are. So it's just lovely to see everyone. So anyway, that's what we propose. I propose we have for our flow for this day. And with that, Josh, do you want to, I know we're not going to do the breakouts right this minute, but you want to give us the necessities so when we do break out, we'll know how to do it?
I do, but you might be changing the plan on me a little bit. So I just want to check in. We were going to put them in little introduction breakouts before Rev D, right? Do you still want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let's do that. Perfect. Then I absolutely want to tell them how that's going to work. So I know many of you are very familiar with this format and are perhaps even here because of it. You're going to be in groups of about 4 people. And before we hear from Rev D, just want to hear a little bit from one another and wanted to offer some general guidance for those conversations. I'm going to pull up my screen here. So remember that these are listening circles and really an opportunity to listen. This is a unique time for all of us, whether we're in the United States and have been through this election process or are elsewhere in the world watching and seeing what it means for our unique situations. Create space for everyone to share and really be listening to understand. I know I can fall into the habit of thinking about what I want to say or what I think about what somebody's reflecting on, but really be in that space of a listening circle and try to have one speaker at a time. We're going to ask you in about 6 minutes together to just introduce yourselves, share your name, where you're from, and what's on your heart today. And then we'll come back and hear from Rev D a little bit about what's on her heart. And then put you in groups again to share around that message. So I'm going to set up the groups now. We'll give you a time check in a little bit, but just get to know one another a little bit and see how that conversation goes. And I just realized I probably want to put those questions in chat. So let me do that first.
While you do that, Josh, the question, what's on your heart today? Let that seep into you a little bit. We didn't say what's in your heart. We didn't say what's on your mind. So just what comes up when you ask yourself, what's on my heart today? And that we're assuming that will be a valuable contribution for you to make to your small group. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. And here you go with the groups.
Thank you. Thank you for meeting one another and maybe meeting yourself newly. So, Reverend Deborah Johnson, here's the question. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on in the world? What do you suggest we be paying attention to now? As Pacha people, and we were in a breakout group where one person, Lynn, she's new. So some of us are new Pacha people. Some people, Leslie's on the call, there have been people who've been here for decades, just about. So what are these times here to teach us? What do you suggest we open ourselves to, plus anything else that you would like to say? That's what we would love to hear you speak about. So the floor is yours. If you unmute, it's going to be easier to get your message if you're unmuted, but we could probably even do it if you were muted, just from your...
There's got to be a good metaphor in that. Well, greetings everyone. And I want to say thank you to everybody for joining this particular listening circle. There's already over a couple of hundred people on it. I invite you to go to the gallery view. I like to do that and just scroll and see the scores and scores of people. Something has brought us all here to this call. Out of all the things that we could possibly be doing at this moment, we're here. And I hope that I can speak into whatever that thread is. Obviously, there's a lot that's going on. This had been billed as being post-election, Well, we're not quite post-election yet, as you well know. This is Thursday, November the 4th, 2020. 2 days ago was the end of the official voting, but now we're in the elongated counting of the ballot period. And, needless to say, it's a nail biter. And we all know this, and we've been living with whatever this anxiety is. And I don't presuppose that I know whatever political affiliations are or what anybody wants to be the outcome of this particular election. But what I'd like to speak to now is what I think that is beyond the election. That to a certain extent, we have thought that two people were on the ballot, or two different kinds of ideologies were on the ballot. But I want to make it really plain. What's on this ballot right now is us. Just breathe that in for a moment. It's us. It's us as people. Us as people. And it, of course, depending upon who wins, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of policy decisions. But regardless of who wins, the fundamental work that is still ours to do as Pacha people, and still ours to do under the sacred covenant that we have with the indigenous peoples about changing the dream that we have in the modernized world, that work is going to stay the same. After the election is declared, you know what? We're still here. We're still here. And there's still us. And what I think we're missing right now is that it's a matter of the heart. Breathe that in. It's a matter of the heart. I spent the first 4 years in college at USC during Watergate time as a political science major. I really thought that I was going to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a judge, and politics and social justice things and all of the rest of that, it's in my bones. It's a place where I live. What I want us to know is that a democracy is not just an institution. I used to believe somehow or another that this democracy was like the rock of Gibraltar, that it was just so strong, and that we had developed these pillars, these 3 pillars between the legislative and the executive and the judicial branch, that was just immovable, that it would take, a cosmic earthquake to unshake us. And at one point it gave me a lot of solace in thinking that we had some kind of stability here. And then as a social justice change activist, it could feel very daunting at times, like chipping away at the Rock of Gibraltar, just to make some kind of change. But I never had any appreciation for just how fragile this thing called democracy is. Just how fragile it is. That essentially, it's just a relationship. It's all that it is. It's just a relationship. I had been using the analogy of a game where there's certain rules. And there's only a game as long as you're playing by the game, playing by the rules. If you keep adding extra innings or moving the goalpost or don't obey the referees, it's not the game anymore. And as we've gone deeper and deeper into this election cycle, I've been really listening I get these spirit downloads. They literally come in the form of letters. They're in a series. Some of them are in a series called Letters from the Infinite. That's actually how I met Lynn Twist when she endorsed my book a number of years ago, and met there prior to me being on the board of directors. And I got this clear message yesterday, and I love this analogy, and I'd like to share it with you, where it was describing democracy like a marriage. It was like being in a collective marriage. And I began to thinking of it in that terms, thinking of that term. It says, what do you want in your one-on-one relationships? And whatever it is that you want in your one-on-one relationships, that's what we're going to have to do at the collective level. This morning, as I was driving here to my center in the Santa Cruz area, my Inner Light Center, I thought about that notion of fighting. You know, been feeling like we've been fighting for democracy and fighting for democracy and fighting for the vote to be counted and whatnot. And so much of this fighting that we have had about this fighting for democracy has been up against and in opposition to other people. With this notion of like hanging on the breath, are we going to win? Like, are we going to win? Are we going to win? And then I got reminded of those times in my life when I was fighting for my relationships, when I was fighting for my family, when I was fighting for my marriage. It wasn't about winning then. Just breathe that in for a second. We have devolved into a phenomenal polarization. The differences of our opinion is not new. It's as old as this nation itself. We've always been more than one America. We've institutionalized that from the beginning. The whole idea of slave states and free states, we've always lived this kind of schizophrenia contradiction. But even in the schizophrenia, it didn't mean that we were necessarily at odds with each other. Differences don't cause conflict. It's polarization that causes conflict. It's deep othering. We have devolved into a profound othering. I hear so many people, and even in my own heart, as I was looking at the election results, and I'm thinking, how could people be for this? How could people support this thing or that thing? And what I feel like I'm really clear about now is that the votes that we're seeing in this election don't necessarily represent what people stand for. It's a lot about what they think they're standing against. People weren't necessarily voting for Biden. It was a referendum on Trump. A lot of the people that voted for Trump weren't necessarily voting for Trump. It was a referendum based on the fears of what they thought a non-Trump world would be. Whether it was going to be socialism. I was speaking last night or yesterday afternoon at a Black Lives Matters rally. And I was saying that a lot of that vote that was happening on the red was a referendum against us standing here. A fear of what Black Lives Matters might mean. The bottom line here is that if we're going to save our soul, we can't depend upon the politicians to do it. If we're going to save our soul, it has to be at a heart level. It has to be at a heart space where we genuinely care and where we genuinely want to live the kind of a world that works for everyone that we've been talking about that we want to do. Am I saying don't get involved in politics? No. There are a lot of things that are at stake. from climate change to I mean, I can go on and on. We all know that. I'm not saying don't get out of that game. But there was a way in which Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg, who were always in polar opposites on the judicial Supreme Court, but they were friends. They were friends. They would go to the opera together. Their families would hang out together. Democracy is a relationship. Democracy isn't about winning. Democracy is about compromise. Democracy is about listening. Democracy is about how do we come together from our various perspectives. And because we have a two-party system, we tend to think of it more partisan than what a democracy really is about or should be. It's the coming together where the people, the ones who are being governed are self-governing. It's time for us to lift our sights a little higher. It's time for us to not just focus on what we don't want, but it's time for us to focus on what we do want. My ministry actually ignited a virtual engagement called hashtags, Visions Igniting, sharing what you do want to see. And this is something I want to invite all of us into in this moment right now. If people listen to your conversations, if they peered in on your social media or read your emails or saw the memes that you sent around, would they know what you stand for? And not just what you stand against. I'm a veteran of many movements. I've been in the trenches. I've been in the LGBTQ movement. I've been in the feminist movement. I've been in the Black movement. I can go on. I have been in so many movements. And I can tell you that the change came when we went after the hearts and minds of what we used to call the opposition. I don't care whether it was finding a new way for men and women to live together as equals. I don't care if it was a new way of trying to figure out how can we share this institution called marriage. Whether it was about King's dream of how the little Black kid and the little white kids can walk hand in hand together. All I'm saying is that our job now is that we have to set our sights a little bit higher than just winning. One of my favorite authors, theologians, is a guy named Howard Thurman. He was considered the father of the civil rights movement. He was a classmate of King Sr. at Morehouse College, and NAACP had sent him to India to learn Gandhi's nonviolent social methods, and he brought it back to the United States. He was the first African-American head of a seminary, a Boston University, where King Jr. got his doctorate of divinity. Thurman started the first interracial church in San Francisco in 1948. He has these beautiful essays, and one of my favorites is, he says, no one ever wins a fight. Let that sink in for a moment. A fight can end, but no one ever wins a fight. So I think we have to ask ourselves now, what do we want to do? Really, what do we want to do? Do we want to thrive? Do we want to be happy? Because if we fight for our nation the same way that we fight for a family or a fight for a marriage, it means we're going to have to get off a little self-righteousness. It means we're going to have to really listen, because I think that red and blue are really suffering from dismissal of each other, from a malignant indifference, lack of care, lack of concern, lack of understanding. And I know from movement building that there's always a middle. I'm about to end because we can get into the groups, but there's always common ground. So these friends or these family members of yours that you're just like absolutely disgusted with, there's some place, whether it's caring for the children or the elders, there's some place where you can still continue to work together. I want to leave you with this. We all need to keep hope alive, the hope. And I have an acronym for hope, which is heart open, possibility, and engagement. As long as we keep our heart open, keep thinking possibility consciousness, that thing that Bobby Kennedy was talking about, where we don't just look at things as they have been and ask why, but we see what could be and ask why not. Heart open, possibility, and stay engaged. Don't shut down. Take a breath. Peace and blessings to you.
Thank you. Seems wrong to even speak now. Thank you for that. And I want to remind everyone that we will all have access to this recording. I know I was taking notes as fast as I could, and it was coming so richly that I didn't capture it all, but we can all revisit this. But really, thank you for that heartfelt download, really, and sharing with us, Reverend. It was really very, very impactful. And I know I was one of the people who thought, what a great idea. Let's just have the person speak for a little while, then meet in groups. I'm thinking, oh gosh, I kind of don't want her to stop, but let's stick with the plan and assume it's going to all work. Okay. So I'm going to be silent now for about 60 seconds. And I'm going to ask everybody to just see what of Rev D's message is resonating in your heart in particular. There's a tremendous amount you went in many different areas, but right now, what is what's there in your heart? What got stirred? Democracy is fragile. It's a relationship. Are we focusing on what we do want? What do I stand for? What about othering? Are we participating in a referendum on fear? How open are we to the hearts and minds of the people who we disagree with? Can we set our sights higher than on just winning? And does anyone ever really win? Is that even possible? Heart open to possibility and staying engaged. So we are going to have a chance to talk with one another. Here's the encouragement. If you can, stay with your experience. So this, you might kind of want to get on a soapbox and give your analysis of the world or what's happening. See if we can use this as a time for you to see and discover for yourself, maybe even in speaking, how is this landing for you? How is Rev D's message landing for you? Did something get opened up for you that you'd like to share with your new best friends who you're going to be in a group with? And Josh, we're going to have about 20 minutes, is that right? And is it 3 people in a group or 4? 4, okay. So you've got your 20 minutes. You see how you want to use it. Somebody should probably be a timer. Maybe you want to each speak for a little bit and then come around again. Maybe do it however you want. I don't know. We don't know what's going to make sense because this is kind of a larger than usual length of time we're giving you. Basically, we're giving you 20 minutes of yourself and 3 Pacha people and Rev D's message in this beautiful day, November 5th, 2020, in the world, on this Pachamama. Enjoy yourself. We'll call you back when it's time to go back. Thanks. If you know how, could you use the little reaction button on the bottom right of your screen? How was that? How were those groups? See if any of those little choices you can make. Let me see. You could clap, you can have a thumb, you could be laughing your head off, you could have like, oh my God face. So we can just screen real quickly. See, how was that experience for people? Nice. Good to, hi Jock, yeah, good to know. Thank you for doing that. Hi Leslie, yeah. Don't you wish we were all together again physically? Great, thank you. So we have a little bit more time. I'm going to first ask Rev D, is there anything that you wish you had said or that felt incomplete that you want to take a minute or two to say now, or should we open it up and hear from people any comments or questions they might have? And I don't know if Rev D needs to unmute herself or you do that, Josh.
You know, gosh, there's so much that I could say. I was just having a conversation with Tracy. And I guess the one thing that I would say, just in a little bit of snippet, is that a lot of times what we're characterizing is things that we see in people as hate. A lot of times it's grief. That it's grief. And that we grieve not only what we had and what we lost, but we also grieve the dream of what could have been. Like when relationships, talking about relationships, like when marriages break up, the hurt isn't even so much about the relationship, because sometimes you don't even want to be in that one anymore. The hurt is the disappointment that you had about what you thought it could have been. And that there's a lot of misunderstanding now. And just like in a one-on-one relationship, that at some point you got to bear your heart open and say, you don't have to fear me. You know, because I'm not really here to hurt you. I don't want to get rid of you. I want to find a way for us to be in this thing together. And at some point, we're going to need to evolve into that if we're ever going to truly, truly, truly have a sustainable democracy.
Thank you. Thank you. And in all honesty, I don't know how, but I got put in a group with Rev D. I didn't pull the strings, but it was just, she and I had these 20 minutes. And we got pretty clear that there's a part 2 to this communication, that originally when we planned this, we thought this was going to be a post-election message. And Rev D has a lot more to say. And so Josh and Maisa, I'm really encouraged, and she's super willing and eager to talk more. There's a tremendous amount more. So thank you, Rev D. Now, we do have a few more minutes. Okay, I see the chat people are saying yes to part 2. So that's then, but how about right now? Anybody, is there anything that came up for you that opened up in your group, something you now see differently about yourself, about the situation that you want to share with Rev D, with the group? If so, you can put it in the chat if you like, or you can raise your hand. If Josh can find you, he'll call on you. We've got a couple minutes, so happy to do it. And in the meantime, Victoria is saying the idea of othering was helpful.
Great, well, let's hear from Melody Wood.
Great.
Hello, can
Hi.
you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sorry. So I'm calling from England, over the pond, and so I haven't been part of your election, you know, from your situation, and yet I feel I've been every much a part of it, because I feel like the whole world is with you. And this morning, my best friend, who's German and lives in Germany, we were conversing about, you know, trying to understand how so many people could think about voting for Donald Trump. And what struck me from listening to Rev D, the thing that resonated most was how the blues and the reds within their relationship were not communicating, and how can they communicate. And anyway, I was talking to the most beautiful woman, Linda, and she helped me to understand, you know, and she's in that very, very situation with her husband. They're different colors, the two of them. And but she spoke about him with such a tolerance and an understanding, and she helped me to understand the reasons that people might vote for him in such a way that it really opened my heart, and reasons I had never even occurred to me, why people would vote for him apart from being mad. And really and truly, I feel so blessed to have had this experience. And I mean, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that, Melody. That's beautiful to hear from you. Josh, shall we call on a couple more? And if you can, make it pretty brief so we can hear from a few more people.
Yeah, let's go with Nancy.
Oh, this was delightful and really what I needed today. So thank you, Pachamama, and thank you, FD. A lot of what we talked about in both groups that I was in was the difficulty in communicating over the gap. And that was just referred to. And I really feel like I want more experience in doing that. And I live in, you know, the Philadelphia suburbs. Everybody here is not alike, but many of us are of like mind. So perhaps as we move future into this, that could be one of the conversations that we have.
Right. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
And maybe one more from Victoria.
Yes, my takeaway is Rev D's hope, you know, heart open, stay in possibility, and stay engaged. I love that.
Thank you. Well, everybody, let's see. We have only one more hand up, right? Maybe we could just call on Teresa, Josh, and call it a day. Yes? Teresa's muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, Teresa.
She's got to unmute.
It was an accidental hand up.
Oh,
thank you.
So we're acknowledging you anyway and welcoming you to the circle. Hi, Teresa. Just didn't want to step over it if you had something important. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. Okay, everybody. I think we're coming toward the end. I'm going to turn this back over to Maisa, I believe. But just let me say, from my point of view, it was an honor to be in your presence, Rev D, frankly. And it was an honor to share this experience with our Pacha community. So thank you for having made yourself available to us. And thank you for saying, let's do more of this, because we're going to take you up on it. So Maisa, anything you want to say by way of completing this listening circle?
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, in fact, we are listening, and when you tell us you want more of this, we really go to it and get to it and create more spaces for you. And so we do have a next listening circle scheduled on November 12th, and it will be with Arkan Lushwala. if it's a message from Archon. Know that he won't be here to answer questions. We did the same similar model a couple of weeks ago, and it was very, very profound. And Archon has something that I haven't heard yet. What I do know from Tracy is that in her recent conversations with Archon, she's been beyond moved. Words that I can't even repeat right now. So if you haven't heard Archon speak before, believe me, you're about to, if you join, you will experience something completely transformative for yourself, or I believe that will happen to you. So
that's 1 week. That's a week from today, right? The 12th. Yeah, pretty much a week from today. Yeah. Yeah, and we hope to see you on the 12th, and also we have our global community gathering. You might have heard about it already. It used to be called, because of the season, it was the fall luncheon event, and now it's going to be, again, responding to this the want and yearn to be in community. So we're bringing the global Pachamama Alliance community together, and your friends, your family, everyone is inviting. Josh is going to put the link there. Please join us. It's going to be another moment to come together and be inspired by the vision and the possibility that we together can hold for the future. Thank you, Josh, for putting that on the chat. We're also really wanting to hear how this is going for you. So there's going to be a feedback link in there for you. Please take some time to let us know how this is working or not for you. And we'll be looking at that and making adjustments as we learn from you. And now, Josh, before I say goodbye to everyone, are we going to have an extended space here, or are we closing?
Yeah, so people said they're interested in reconnecting with their groups. So certainly not something you have to do, but once we close, we'll open the breakout groups again, and you'll have an opportunity to join those if there are any final thoughts you wanted to share with the folks from your last discussion.
Excellent. So we'll do that. And thank you, everyone. I myself go thinking of democracy as a relationship. I'm rewiring. A lot is happening in my heart, my body, my head, and I'm very appreciative for that. Focus on what I do want for the future. Hoping you all live with that as well. We look forward to seeing you next week and the following week, and together we go on in community. Lots of love to you all.
Be well.
Bye.
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 Everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed.